Chapter 3. One day, far away from any of the general day-to-day life of the Amazonians, an ancient sacred stone circle lit up and generated an energy field that made a loud, strange, buzzing sound. All of a sudden, a stargate manifested, surrounded by light. It was a stargate that had not been seen or used for thousands of years. The gate allowed multidimensional travel for those wanting to move between planets and dimensions from all over the universes. A long succession of a race unknown to the Amazonians, known as the Mopheads, appeared. One by one, 1,000 soldiers walked through the gate wearing plated armour. Their faces were grey and fierce, and they stomped their feet as they clonked along. They held large pole-like weapons that glowed silver in the light, wrapped with a dark metal that spiralled around the top. Once all the soldiers were through, they drew to a halt, and then the king appeared, a small gaunt man who looked just as grey as the soldiers. "Hail King Atmat!" the chief soldier called out. "Hail King Atmat!" the whole army responded. "Sire, in the name of King Atmat, we claim this kingdom for you," boomed the chief. "Very well, let us find somewhere to build my castle," said the king in his small squeaky voice. Just then the queen came through. She was small and wore a long ivory dress with sequins that made her look luminescent in the sun. Her long blonde hair was gathered into a plait that laid down her back. She too was very grey, but still seemed to hold on to a little sparkle in her blue eyes. "Hail Queen Sazanda!" the chief called out. "Hail Queen Sazanda!" the army replied. The royal children then followed through the stargate. "Hail Korba, son of King Atmat!" the chief called out. "Hail Korba!" The boy just looked on. He was not as strong-looking as the soldiers, but weaker in nature, just like his father, his mother, and his sister. The young girl stepped forward, and again the chief called out, "Hail Rhea, daughter of King Atmat!" Thank you very much," replied Rhea in a small, friendly voice. "Silence! Have you learnt nothing?" said the king. Rhea just raised her eyes and continued to survey her new surroundings with her long red hair blowing in the wind. She wore a long green dress that reached down to her ankles, with long pointed green shoes peeking out from beneath. She pulled her purple shawl up around her shoulders as the fresh air bit at her neck and her arms, and walked to be closer to her brother. He was standing still, looking perplexed. He wore dark brown trousers and a thick jacket with pockets and a hood that laid down his back. He too felt the fresh air around him and pulled his hood up and gathered his jacket closer to him to compensate for the feeling of unease. Korba gave Rhea a half-hearted, reassuring glance. He wished he could tell her that everything was going to be okay, but he was not sure he believed that himself. He had no idea what his father's plans were for them and everyone else. They were young adults now, but they were still very connected to their mother, and Korba looked to her for reassurance. "Where are we, mother?" "Do not worry, my children. Your father has a plan, and we should trust in that alone." The stargate was still open, and thousands of the king's folk came through. Scared and raggedy families, each carrying just one bag, looked on to their new surroundings. The soldiers rounded them up into a line. "Let us move forwards and onwards." The soldiers addressed the people in an authoritative tone. "Everyone is to walk and follow us. We are in search of a place to build King Atmat his castle, barracks for the army and homes for us all." The royal family were carried by horses adorned with beautiful gold and purple silks. The army marched in lines of 4, and the king's people followed behind, and the soldiers ensured they kept up to speed. The stargate closed behind them, and the stones were allowed to return to their quiet life, nestled within the grass, surrounded by beautiful meadow flowers blowing in the breeze. They stood in their circle, listening to the soldiers march off in the distance. All 12 stones were very concerned for what had occurred, and decided to meld their energies together and send a telepathic message to someone they knew who should be informed of the new arrivals to the planet.